In this next video, I'm going to cover uh, a topic that's always a good one and always asked about, especially for conditioning. It's going to be entitled Endurance. But first, nothing meant for any intended or meant to be used for any illegal purposes. We all know there's legal sports and hunting that we can use this information in today's time. It's all history, personal opinion, personal experience, and some fiction. Let me preface it by saying, in the past, and this happens in different genres or different sports, and it seems to have a way of coming around every generation or so. In the past, with the dogs, you have an element in the community that liked short events. They didn't like to go distance. They want to get in there, get out, whether do a lot of damage or overwhelm their opponent, or they were not interested in being there for a long time. And it's a psychological factor in a lot of ways. One of the things is because those long distance events, they can become boring or even start out boring, where not a lot is being done. They don't show a lot of athleticism, not a lot of ability, and they can be frustrating for the dogs themselves. And another psychological thing is it takes a lot of nerves to be in there for a long time, especially if they're quality animals. People's adrenaline starts going, and it dumps just like the dogs did their adrenaline, and they start to get nervous. You make mistakes. You overthink things. For an event like that, you have to be in control of your faculties, or your emotions, your thoughts. It's nerve-wracking for a lot of people. So that's the main reason, in my opinion, why people didn't like them. Because if in any sport that could have endurance involved in it, you should be prepared for it. You should understand it. You should accept it. And you should know how to deal with it and handle it. And with birds, game fowl, same thing. It seems like every generation you have these people coming out and they want fast, hard hitters and deep cutters. Get in there and get out. For the same reason. They don't want to be there for 20 minutes. Especially with the short knives. When I used to host game fowl events at my property many, many years ago, they had a time limit. They were hack fights, meaning people just showed up. You put the weights together. If the birds were within an ounce or two, they'd hook it up and do it. But they had a 20-minute time limit on it, just to keep the event going. And most of them did not go that long. Even 5 minutes was a long time in those type of shows. But they preferred theirself to get in there and get out, right? And this is where gameness, including, or endurance, including gameness, can come into play. Because in my mind, I like a short win too. They have their preference. They wouldn't want to be in there. Most people wouldn't want to be in there for any length of time. You want to get in and get out as fast as you can within the rules. And it prolongs the career of your individual animal as well. Meaning their body doesn't get as stressed, not as much damage, not as much fatigue and after effects and all that involved in it. So I understand it. Some people, like Steve with the white dogs, he, in his mind, the show didn't get started till the hour mark. Then you really saw who the bulldog was. And there's something to be said for that too. If your dogs are known for that, just like a lot of Boleo dogs, distance was their repartee, so to speak. Not that they didn't have short wins and they weren't finishers and stuff like that. You know, we talk about that in all these podcasts, and I mentioned before in other videos. But if you had to go distance where you need endurance and air, good wind, and intelligence, Boleo dog was right to your liking. And they were kind of the counter for that rough, intense, short, knockout style type of individual as an opponent. So in my mind, I wanted both. And I had several distance matches, you could call them, starting at hour 28, hour 30, hour 31, hour 50, 202, 208, 220, 231, 243. Won some and I lost some. But for me, and I had most of mine were under an hour. So in my mind, I wanted to be prepared for anything that happened. Being there a short amount of time, the shortest show we had a win with was 23 minutes, and the shortest show we had in a loss was 31 minutes. So you have to be prepared for both. Now, in traditional sports with humans, and in some animals, there's sports relegated to both. Even in horse racing, you have the short. The Mexicans like the quarter horses, quarter mile. In thoroughbred racing, you have, anywhere to somewhere under a mile to mile and a half, generally speaking. Kentucky Derby covers 3 distances, and the longer it goes, the Triple Crown covers 3 distances. The longer it goes, the increase the distance for each one. So the Kentucky Derby is a certain length, the Preakness is a longer length, the Belmont is the longest. Then you have steeplechase horses, or long distance, 2-3 miles, where you need endurance. Those are generally a slower paced race, but they have to be rugged and durable to endure that longer distance. And even with the game fowl, you have the short knife, which, the Mexicans used a curved blade like that, and they didn't go that long. With those long curved gaffs, those are generally longer shows, and you have a more display of gameness. And the reason I bring that up, where in my opinion you need to have both in your dog, even though some people were adamant that they didn't care, they want to get in there and get out, and some people preferred, I don't want to be in there, I want to be a long time because my dogs had a lot of heart and I would come on strong in the end and win. But I like both because at some point in the past, your dogs were going to have to display that. And what generally happens is when you start to swing too far one way from the other, meaning you like them short wins, you're going to lose endurance. You're going to lose gameness, which that too has proven to be a fact. When you swing too far the other way, towards the distance side, you're going to lose some speed and strength. You could lose gameness, but generally that's not the first thing you lose. But you are going to lose ability, because the ability of the individual generally is what determines a short distance show, not the gameness, not the durability, not the ruggedness in those terms. It's the ability, performance. high-end attributes, mouth and speed and strength, things that could get it done quick. That's why I liked an all-around athlete better than a particular individual. And the longest show I won was with Clayton Blood, 243, and he was a head dog. Some people loved him. They liked that style. They liked his speed, his intelligence, his air, his balance. Others didn't. In fact, one guy after he won, he come up to me and said, "Is that all you got? That's what your dogs are about?" And I said, "Yeah, that's all I got. That's what they're about." And they weren't. He was an exception to my dogs. Mine were rough. They were strong and they were fast. But I took advantage of the situation. You know, sometimes you say stuff like that, you might get some more dogs hooked up. If that's what your opponents or potential opponents think that's all you got, I got something to beat that. And then when they do meet you, that's not what you got. You may have something similar to them, but better. He's better at doing it. So some people they don't like that. I did. I can appreciate both. I could appreciate, Muhammad Ali going distance. I could appreciate Joe Frazier knocking people out, or Tyson, or a Foreman. I could appreciate a power hitter like Alexis Arguello, who could take you out in one round or go 15 rounds if he had to. And same with Duran, or even there's a little lightweight. No, he was flyweight. Miguel Canto, flyweight champion from Mexico. Most of his title fights and most of his fights in general went the distance. He ended up winning a world title and made several title defenses. Very few knockouts. I don't think in his multiple win career he had 20 knockouts. I don't think. So again, the point is, I want to have both. And when you're lacking something through breeding process, you can improve on it. You can make it better, or you can get something that'll improve your mouth, your wind, your strength, your structure. So endurance, to me, is a very important aspect of any breeding program, conditioning program, sporting program. So just to be clear on what that involves, I have notes here like I always do generally now because I'm getting older and I forget, but endurance is the capacity to continue an activity or effort that is stressful or prolonged, such as running a marathon or competing for extended periods of time. It's also the ability to resist, recover from, or have immunity to fatigue, wounds, or trauma. Some of these activities could include long-distance running, cycling, swimming, the bait method that I use with my dogs that's in my keep, dragging weights, or spring pole. So I'll just take some of these into, just talk a little bit about them, as it relates to dogs. Even hand walking for long distances. So if you're walking, trotting, jogging, running a dog for miles, you're building up endurance. It's that longer, slower process of building up their wind. As it relates to a competition, these things are directly related to displays of gameness. And although I took this out of a dictionary, it's understood, having immunity to fatigue, wounds, and trauma, it's understood that you need endurance to be able to do that, because you're pushing through and you're dealing with and you're accepting that trauma and you're forcing yourself mentally and physically to go above and beyond that trauma to continue to compete. Now we see that in all kinds of sports. when you have football games that last for 3 or 4 hours, and you have basketball games that last for 2 or 3 hours, and you have marathon races and any long distance uh, sporting event, you need endurance for that. And where you have the resist and recover from all this stuff, resist means you deal with it, you put up with it, right? You don't let it get you down, you don't allow it to make you quit. But during that long process, and even though in basketball and football there's intervals where they're not playing for the whole amount of time, but over distance they're repeatedly playing the same event, whether it involves dribbling, shooting hoops, blocking, all this stuff. And with football, the same thing. You got to run to catch the ball, you got to push your way through the line, or it's repeatedly over and over, even though there's intervals in between. And you can do that to build endurance. I'll talk about that a little later with those intervals in workouts. So that recovery during your training is important to me. And I've covered that. I covered in my book. I've talked about it before. I'll just mention it again. I like my dogs to hit a certain pace in the beginning. I like them to start fast. After that first initial start, they're going to get to a point where they, what I would call, have to catch their wind. That's where they slow down. That's the recover time period during the workout. I don't stop them to let them recover, walk them off like that, and then continue the process. And I generally did this only when I had my dogs running next to a bike like that. So we're out there running, boom, they're going to hit that spot. They're going to slow the pace down, catch their wind, then they'll increase it. And generally I got them during a 8-week keep. The first 4 weeks I got them up to 8 to 10 miles depending on the dog. So within that long distance of miles, they're going to hit it hard, slow down, recover, hit it hard, slow down, recover, hit it hard, like that. And at the end of each workout, whatever it is I'm doing, and with this running part, the road work part, the last quarter mile, I'm running them towards the house as fast as they can go. 100 miles an hour, if you want to use that term, to finish strong. Then after the workout, that's when I walk them out to cool them down, put them up. So with the dogs, some of the long distance endurance building exercises I've done and others have done and we can do include running, cycling, or using an ATV or a vehicle or whatever to move alongside your dog. Swimming is another one. The bait method I talked about. Dragging weights, and even spring pull, as long as these workouts for extended periods of time without stopping. I mean, you do the complete workout. Doesn't matter whether it's 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. It's generally a continuous workout, and that helps you build endurance. And there's different endurance processes that you can use, or exercises, how you use them. And two of the main things when we talk about endurance exercise are aerobic and anaerobic. So aerobic exercise basically is that a physical activity that uses large muscle groups in a rhythmic, repetitive way, increasing your heart rate and breathing rate. These include, again, walking, cycling, swimming, hiking, jogging, running, which increase endurance. So that's the point of it. It's a long term or long distance or long time period workout. Now that doesn't mean that you got to start out your keep or whatever it is you're doing running them 10 miles. You don't have to do that. It's a build up to that. But regardless of whether you start at a mile or 2 miles and work up to 10 or 15 miles, whatever it is, it's that process of nonstop work for that period of time, right? And in my case, I could do a short keep. Most of my keeps were 8 weeks. I've done 6 weeks. I've even done 4-week keeps. So how do you do a 4-week keep and have them in peak condition with only 4 weeks? Even though if you look in the past and you see all these keeps these people put out, whether it's Armitage or Bowser or a lot of these guys that have these old keeps, Lightner and stuff. I don't remember the names. I'm just using those names, but I know Armitage put his keep in his book, and a lot of these guys did that. Most of them were 30 days. Even Tudor said he could have a dog ready to compete in 10 to 30 days. He advertised that. So how do they do that? And how could I get a dog, the same dog, one time do them an 8-week keep and the next time do them a 4-week keep? Well, as I mentioned before, I regularly exercised my dogs. They were fit. They were not heavy. They were not obese. They were close to weight their whole life if it was a competition dog. So my answer to that was, in an 8-week keep, if I'm going to start the running process, the road work for 2 miles, that's how I started, and then build up to the 8 to 10 miles over a 4-week period. Well, with a 4-week keep, my dog can already run 5 miles without a problem. So that's where I'm going to start him. 5 miles. So starting at 5 miles, in 3 weeks, I got him up to 8 miles. Shorter period of time, same result, because what I started off with was an athlete that was already fit. And you can do that. We see that in boxing. Especially in the past, these guys are fighting regularly. Because they didn't, in between fights, they didn't gain too much weight. And they didn't have to lose weight. They didn't let themselves go. They were active. So they stayed close to weight. And not only that, the weight fluctuated in their fights. Henry Armstrong will be a good example. He won he won the lightweight title, went up to welterweight and won the welterweight title. Then he went back down to featherweight and won the featherweight title. But he fluctuated a lot. He even fought for the middleweight title. And he played hell making 26 pounds for the featherweight title, but he did it. And he didn't, I don't think he ever defended it, but he did win it. So with him, he could fluctuate anywhere from 135 to 160 pounds. I'm not saying to do that with a dog, but I'm just showing you when you stay in shape, your weight can fluctuate that way. And throughout the year, my dog's weight did fluctuate. In the wintertime, they might be 3 or 4 pounds over their weight. In the summertime, they may be a pound over their weight, dead on weight, or even underweight because it's so hot. And when you do that, you get to see how the dog behaves and how he works and how he moves and all that stuff at different weights. And that, if you do that from a young age, and I'm not saying to starve your dogs or anything, I'm not. But if you see your dog at different weights throughout their life, and once they're adults, you see that weight can fluctuate throughout the year, the seasons, or depending on how you keep them, where you keep them, what you're doing with them. Then it helps you determine what's the best weight for your dog, or is he comfortable at this weight more so than a different weight? Can he handle a little more weight? Is he okay a little less weight? And that's why there's so many discrepancies in a dog's weight, people's opinion, what they even did him at, right? And when I say, like I mentioned, you never know when your dog might have to go that distance. It happened all the time. One of the most famous dogs in the history of the breed and well known was Zebo. All his fights were short, except for one. When he had to move up 3 or 4 pounds to fight the 4-time winner champion Greaser, he proved that he could go almost 2 hours. Show heart and finish at the end. They didn't expect that. Zebo wasn't that type of dog. But because he was Zebo and he was that caliber of animal, he was able to go that distance and show endurance and heart without them ever expecting that he would have to. He was that bad of a dog. It happens. So with conditioning, that's how you can fluctuate a keep, and that's how you can learn how to a dog's weight in fluctuating, uh, how it affects them and what are the results of it. So these are a lot of aerobic exercises, that long-term non-stop workout. Anaerobic exercises, it uses energy quickly and immediately. High intense interval training, quick strength training, mill work, flirt pole for example, intense physical training of short duration, fueled by the energy sources within the contracting muscles and independent of the use of inhaled oxygen as an energy source. Which means basically you're using what you already have in you as an energy source during those short interval exercises. For example, I have a friend, Marty's the ex-professional fighter, and some people know my grandson's involved in boxing. So he gave him a little program, a little workout thing to work on. One of the things he mentioned was, rather than having, because my grandson, he can run 4 or 5 miles, no problem. And he said, rather than having him run 4 or 5 miles, have him run as fast as he can for 15 minutes. That, too, speaking of anaerobic exercises, is an endurance building exercise. Running for short distance, hard as you can, that builds up endurance too. So some examples with the dogs would be a free turning mill where they can sprint on, a carpet mill where you build strength and endurance at a slower pace, which has a tendency to build more strength. But if you have a dog that runs that as fast as they can, there's that resistance because it's a carpet mill. It doesn't spin as free as as a uh, a slat mill. It's still a short workout. They're still building strength and endurance. So in that respect, you could do all the same exercise. You want to do road work, you can do it for a short period of time. Get them out there and run them as hard as you can. Do it for a mile if they can go a mile, because people have a tendency to think that dogs can run 100 miles an hour for a long period of time. They can't. Nothing can. Not no cheetah, not no horse, not no human, not nothing. Those high intense training workouts are meant to be for short duration, and then you recuperate, and then you can do the high intense workout again. And that's where you have sets, whether it's weight pulling, dragging at a fast pace, short period of time, recoup, repeat. Now, generally, you're not going to repeat those actions a lot. Let's say you have a free turning mill and you want to get your dog up to 30 minutes. You could do 3 10-minute intervals, or you could do 2 15-minute intervals just to make it mathematically easy to understand. So you get them up to your 10 minutes, boom, recoup. Do another 10 minutes, boom, recoup. Do another 10 minutes, end of workout. That's 30 minutes. And I'm not saying to start it off that way, but you're building up to it. So you might start 2 minutes, recoup. 2 minutes, recoup. 2 minutes, recoup. Just so he gets in that program of doing an intense workout, recuperating, then doing an intense workout again. Whether it's 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And you're building up to the time that you consider right for your keep and for that dog. So it's never a set amount of time, just like it's never a set amount of distance. It's what your dog can do and what you get out of him and what he's comfortable with and what he shows you. So maybe you can get the dog up to 4 15-minute intervals of sets. You got an hour on the mill. Maybe you could do that with miles, where it's a fast pace running for a mile, recoup, do it again, and over a period of the keep, you're getting up to doing those intervals 4 times. So you have 4 intervals, that equals a mile. I mean, that equals 4 miles. 4 intervals of 1 mile each, and that'll get you up to your 4 miles. It's not 8 miles, it's not 10 miles, but the result of that 4-mile fast-paced workout could be the same as an 8 or 10-mile long-distance workout. So that's generally what anaerobic means. Short, intense workouts for short periods of time, and you could do one or you could do sets. That's where I think the flirt pole comes in. For me, it was always a fast-paced workout for a short amount of time, and I never did sets with it, honestly. But you could, even if it's 1 minute. You start off 1 minute, boom, boom, they're going as fast as you can. Stop, let them cool down, do it again for a minute. You could build them up to 5 minutes, whatever it is, and do sets of that, intervals of that. If you do 3, you got a 15-minute flirt pole workout. That's a lot of work, believe it or not, if you have a high intense, fast-paced working out dog. It's a slow pace on the flirt pole, or even on a spring pole, where they're hanging on, they're not really working, or they're chasing the flirt pole, but it's not at high speed. You could do it for a longer period of time. You don't need sets with those type of dogs, I don't think, in my opinion. If they're a slower paced working dog, you do the longer interval one workout. It's a fast paced flirt pole working dog. You could do intervals or sets to build that endurance up. And you could even use, like I mentioned, spring pole as an endurance training method. If the dog, depending on how the dog works it, get them on there, you can get up to half hour, or whatever it is, you know. And with all these workouts, you have to understand which muscles are working, how your dog is working, at what pace he's working, how violent he is on the spring pole, or how mellow he is on the spring pole. It all matters. And for me, judging how much is enough, how much is too much, how much is not enough, it all has to do with the breathing of the individual and the heart rate of the individual. And I didn't have heart rate monitors, but I could see their chest moving. I could see their heart beating through their chest on the side by their ribs. You see it. And you see them breathing the air that they take in, whether they're panting, whether it's long drawn out or it's short, trying to get air. And that's how I judged it. And there's other signs. You see the eyes watering up or glazing over, way too much. You see the tongue coming out, that's not bad. You see a little bit of foam, that's not bad. But you see a lot of foam slopping around and them spitting a lot of shitty foam out. Their tongue comes out and it starts changing colors and flopping to the side, or it gets wide, you know, cups like that, and they can't control their tongue coming out straight, and now it's hanging to the side, and that's too much. So you have to be able to judge the dog, and unfortunately you have to make these mistakes to know the difference between what is enough, what is not enough, and what's too much. And it's always better to do not enough than too much. 100% guaranteed. So this is some stuff on endurance. It's a good topic. Appreciate all the comments you guys been putting up, and I try to answer each one. And we'll have some more coming out. Thanks for your support and for your likes and comments and subscriptions, all that stuff. We'll talk soon.